somebody help. That's we're all singing on this episode.
Yeah. Welcome everyone to an all new episode of the Wife Like Me podcast. We're pumped to dive into today's topic. A little hesitant, not gonna lie, because I've got lots of thoughts in my brain about it, but it's gonna be so good. My name is Amanda Davison. If we have not yet met, I'm the founder here at A Wife Like Me. I love you. And we have our dear friend Kelly Brinkman with us. Hey, Kelly.
Hey, y'all.
Hey. And Kelly is an interactive potter. She's a speaker. She's an artist. She's amazing. Duh. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't be spending so much time with her.
Besties.
But you can find Kelly over at kellybrinkman.com. We link her in the show notes, so just check that out to find her. But okay, today we're diving into an all new topic, friends, and it's going to be good. We are focusing on a blog post from Kristen Milner. And it's called We All Need Help Sometimes. That should be a song title. It's not. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. I didn't look. But it's good and hard and all the things. You can find Kristen at kristenmilner.com. We will also link her in the show notes. But her blog post kind of, I feel like, opens up a little bit of a can of worms, if I'm going to be honest. I love this topic, and I also don't love this topic because I feel like there's so much to say about it. Okay. So here's how she opens her blog post, which is so great. But that's why I'm really excited to be talking about it. So she says, after several days of dealing with the grumpies, I unloaded lots of negative emotions on my husband. He had done nothing wrong and was even taking on a greater load by helping with chores and the kids. Even with that extra help, it still didn't feel like enough. The same thoughts ran through my everyday life like clockwork. Why do I always have so much on my plate? Why do I never have enough help? That's when my husband sat me down and gently asked what was making me feel so grumpy all the time. Isn't that great? That's just a great sentence. Gently asked, girl, why are you so grumpy all the day long? What is your problem?
But gently.
Yeah, we need to talk, okay? I love that. In all my complaining, she says, of how much I had going on, I had never recognized how much help I actually was receiving. I wasn't grateful. And worse, I was criticizing the way others were helping, never considering how much extra was being put on their plates as well. Okay. So she said that she felt a mix of shame and gratitude. So here's what I am learning. Oh, that was really funky. I don't know what that was, but here's what I'm learning is that I think there are some issues here that the Christian culture can really work on I don't know if you've experienced this, Kelly, but okay. For those of you who don't know my story, I've only been a Christian for 10 years. Okay. So a lot of weird things happened, I think, which I'm grateful for. I feel like I don't think I would have had this recognition if I had been a Christian my entire life. So what I learned is that once I became a Christian, I was like, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to be thinking that or feeling that or saying that or believing that. Oh, okay. So now that I'm a Christian, that's how I'm supposed to be thinking of that. One of those issues being around housework, maybe. Okay. So for example, I feel like there's a lot of different camps on this, if you might say. For example, some of us might have heard the narrative that because we can read what Kristen just said or hear that and feel like, oh, so I'm just supposed to not ever ask for help, and I'm just supposed to be super grateful for everything they do, and I'm just supposed to keep a smile on my face, right? That can actually be what a lot of Christian women hear. And sister friend, P.S., super unhealthy. Okay, so that's not healthy. Okay, but what happens then, and I've played this mental game myself, is oh, but that means I'm not selfless. I'm not loving my husband like I'm supposed to, because I'm not just, doing everything with a smile on my face, right? Aren't I supposed to be doing everything with like the best heart and be super grateful all the time? And like,
Mhm.
I'm not supposed to, right? Like, so we what we do in the church oftentimes is we take a verse and then we, extract the practicality of that. Like, okay, so I'm supposed to, XYZ, scripture says. So then that looks like this in the home. It looks like never asking for help. It looks like never saying when I maybe need more help. And it looks like whatever, right? We place like a definite where we
Right.
put a practical, like defining things on that actually scripture doesn't say, right?
Right.
But when we do that in the church, it's super, like, it can be really damaging.
Mhm.
So I've wrestled with this is my point. And then like on the other spectrum of that in the church, we can come across like we can be disrespectful in our communication and we can be resentful if our expectations or reality don't meet or align with our expectations, and we can become, fill in the blank, like rude and demeaning, and we can withhold sex, we can be cold and all the, so like there's all this, there's a spectrum is my point. And I think it's important that when we read something like this, we first look at and reflect on, what am I believing to be
Mhm.
true about what it's supposed to look like in the home?
Mhm.
Because if we start there and if we actually seek the Lord in that first, we might be surprised in like how much we've been believing about our Christian walk as a wife or a mom, when in fact scripture doesn't even talk about it. And I think
Mhm.
that is really important because us Christians can give Christianity and Jesus a super bad name based on what we are just kind of maybe traditionally or generationally or whatever just doing because we think it's what we're supposed to do. But it can be really damaging to even non-Christians and about what we're saying about the God we serve. So I'm just like backtracking because when I say what I read what Kristen just said, it can elicit like a lot of in us of like, wait a second, there's like all these emotions with that. And I don't know if any of that resonated with you, Kelly, but like, I don't know. I just had to like give that background first before we like dive into this.
So I think it can evoke a lot of angst because how did we get there? That we need help. Then we're dealing with the issues of gratitude that she speaks to. So you were speaking kind of in general. Can you give me an example? Help me kind of put feet to this. Give me an example of things that you see maybe in a Christian marriage that if it's not aligned with God's best, and it can just be a cultural thing that we've learned.
Yeah, I guess I think that like example wise might be just depending on our Christian, again, culture. I think it's more maybe denominational or more like based on our own, again, upbringing too, if our
Oh,
parents were Christian and things like that. Like what have we adopted maybe like from our maybe teachings that we've heard or communities that we've grown up in or spent time in or whatever that we're learning from? And what are they telling us about what it's supposed to look like when we actually look at how's our home supposed to operate, okay, and who is supposed to do what, and what does fair really mean, what does that actually look like? So I think depending on that in the home it can look like even generationally removing Christianity from the topic. Generationally, maybe our moms did everything and the husband just came home and put his feet up, Christian or not. That's maybe how the traditional gender roles looked, or and so therefore my mom never asked my dad to do anything because she just willingly did it and she knew that was what she was supposed to be doing because that's what her mom and her grandma did and whatever, right? So not even necessarily a religion oriented topic that we're even talking about, but when we do look at the Christian culture, we can feel guilty. I think guilt is at the root of this. We can
mm,
feel guilt and shame for admitting that we do need help, and then even asking for more when we need more. And I think that's depending on our experience and the teaching and the culture that we are in or have been in, that can just look different. Where at home, if I need more help, again, it can be anything: laundry, dinner, planning groceries, cleaning, running errands, whatever that is. And we can dive into that. Depending on that, it just looks different depending on what we believe it's supposed to look like. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think you touch on what she's saying here when she said that she was asking for more help. And honestly, she felt a mix of shame and yet gratitude for his help. And you kind of went shame and guilt. Those can be wrapped up with gratitude nearby because you're thankful for what you do have.
Yes, and Kristen also points out the issue of pride being a huge part of this. So if I believe that as a Christian wife or mom, I'm supposed to fill in the blank, then my pride, if I believe that, my pride prevents me then from admitting that that's not working for me, maybe.
Okay.
And then asking for help if it's not working. Or even maybe asking about, maybe could we even have a conversation about this because it makes me feel XYZ, resentful, bitter, angry, all the things, even though I believe I'm supposed to be doing that. And I believe I'm supposed to be whatever, super grateful, but I'm not because I'm still resentful. Like, can we talk about that? Like pride prevents us from even going there, if that makes, and I love that she brings that up because we don't even want to reveal or admit that this is a hard topic and I don't know how I feel about it, but I think we need to dive into it,
Right. I think that pride can be on both ends, pride to think I don't need help. I've got all the things, or I can do it all, whatever that is. For each of us, it's different. Or to think I'm not even going to try and I'm going to tap out because I'm fearful that the image of me will be damaged because I won't do it well enough.
Yeah.
And it comes back to expectations. That was my biggest takeaway from Kristen's post, was really looking at what are expectations. Because if I have a need to ask for help, I have to step back and say, what am I asking for help with? And why am I doing that particular task? And sometimes it falls on the side of because I think it's expected, right? Or I feel pressure from someone else to perform that, to do that. And that someone else could be my husband, it could be my kids, it could be this, lady, I don't even know her name, but I see her, every day at the gym, or I see her at the grocery store, or I see her at the playground, and I have to go back and look at my expectations, because I find with a lot of the blog posts, I have to step back, because then that's where it really hits me. And if I can step back 2 or 3 levels, then it hits me where I can affect some change and say, hey, where's that expectation sitting?
And be willing to receive that, like she says. So I think what I have, walked through myself is, yes, do I have unrealistic expectations of what this is supposed to look like? My husband versus me, and what it boils down to in our everyday life.
Right.
Do I have unrealistic expectations of him? Oftentimes I do. And so therefore I'm going to get into something that can be really helpful, but is that true for me? Do I have unrealistic expectations? And are those making me ungrateful for the help he is giving? So like part of this is always recognizing, do I want to ask for more help? Do I need more help? Not even do I want to ask, do I need more help, period, with whatever. Then being willing to ask for that help and being willing to allow them to do that task to their own standard. This is a huge topic I talk about frequently and coach on, because we all need help with it. So I'm gonna come back to that point. If you are not familiar with Sheila Ray Gregoire, dive in. She has a phenomenal book, The Great Sex Rescue. Okay, she references how she talks about how our mental load and emotional labor translate to our ability to orgasm. And so dive into The Great Sex Rescue to learn all about that. Okay, but what I'm going to talk about is she has also done and she talks about somewhat mental load and emotional labor. Okay. And that's what really this is about. Because when we talk about, hey, I need help, and it's okay to have help and ask for help from our husbands, from whoever. Okay. It really comes down to obviously not only tasks, but emotional labor and mental load. Okay. So mental load. I'll talk about mental load first. Mental load is the never-ending mental to-do list.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's that thing you can't shut off when your husband wants, or you want to have some fun. Okay, so or whenever you're driving, it's always there. You're thinking about, what do I have to do? What do the kids need for school? When does Billy have the soccer game? When is that parent lunch? Because right after that, I'm gonna have to go get groceries. And well, it's that mental to-do list. Okay, it's ongoing. That's that. Then the emotional labor. What I love, PS side note, is that they're defining for us what is oftentimes hard to define. Okay.
Right. Give words to it.
Yeah. The emotional labor is the maintaining relationships and managing emotions. Okay. Which this is exhausting and important again to define. So this is like the getting the thank you cards for the gifts for Christmas, thanking people for different things. When the kids come to you and maybe not your husband for friendship difficulties or they got hurt and they come to you 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 and you feel like it's on you to maintain the relationships and the emotions involved with those relationships. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that's like this taxing effect of, on top of the housework or duties, it's emotional labor and mental load on top of that. So there's a book out there that's not a Christian book, but it is actually really helpful. It's called Fair Play by Eve. Is it Rodosky, maybe? Rodsky? I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce that. But so it's not a Christian book, so watch out for some wording in there. But it's very helpful. And the main takeaway from that book is that there's ownership. So this actually was something that our premarital pastor did before we got married. He asked us to go home, make a list of everything that we do, everything that needs to get done. Mm-hmm. Just make a list. Boom, 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 everything. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, huge long list. Then next to that, write who does that currently. Okay, so it gives a visual, right, of tasks and who's owning them currently. Mm-hmm. And what this book Fair Play really does is it just helps you to then manage differently ownership of different tasks, right? So it comes down to, here's all the things. And on top of that too, here's what's in my mind with the mental load and the emotional labor. And instead of expecting our husbands just to magically take things away, we can talk about what is difficult and how maybe we can help each other ask questions. We can give ownership to different things that maybe aren't there currently, but then we also have to allow them, whoever owns a task is in charge of conceptualization of that task, planning and execution of it. So essentially, if my husband owns, let's say, the garbage or the doing the dishes, let's say, if he owns that and I've given him ownership of that, that means that I have to be willing to not expect him to have the same standard of care that I place on that than I do. And if I expect a higher standard of care or execution or planning of something, then I need to own that. And I cannot be resentful. If he's willing I'm just not happy with the result, it's not on him. And that tells me I need to own it, and I cannot be angry with him if he doesn't, if it's not done to my standard and
Right.
I have to do it, then it's on me. That's not on him, that's on me. So I guess it's so complicated.
It
To this
is.
point.
It's really that stepping back. There's a situation in our marriage where there was a large activity around Christmas time that a lot of couples or families adopt. And my husband got wind of it. And at first I thought, it's been around a long time, but okay. So he's seeing it and he said, "What do you think about us doing that?" And I said, "That is too much for me. If you want to do that and own that, go for it. But that is not something that I have time for." And so
Yeah.
being able to turn that over, and it's another thing when he brings it home and begins to do that, he's going to do it differently than me, which is fine. I have to be fine with that, right? So Mark's an attorney and a judge, and so we watch all the lawyer movies and Law and Order and whatnot. But you watch the movie with Jack Nicholson on the stand. I forget the name of it right now, but it'll come back to me later. Where he says, you can't handle the truth. And also in that, he said, "You can't call me to defend the borders of our country and then critique the way I'm doing it." And
Mm.
I think about that. And I think about that with our kids too. And whether or not you have kids, sometimes bringing it back to that level and thinking, am I really okay with them doing it differently? Or that's a person that you work with, right? And being okay to not micromanage and to say that is okay if it is not done to the same way that I would and to the same degree, and be able to step back because there's teachable moments both for me and for them.
And for any wife listening right now who is saying or thinking, but I should be able to critique them.
Mm.
I hear that a lot and I understand that. And it is completely up to you whether or not you walk that journey for yourself, because we all know the reality of what's on the other side of that. If we choose to continue to belittle, to critique, to correct our people, then we are going to experience division in that relationship, period,
Mhm.
because it hurts the relationship, period.
Right.
Um, and so that's your choice if you want to continue. That's totally fine.
And
Um,
sometimes that comes back to picking the battles. For me, it might be, I know we talk about garbage a whole lot here and the task of putting out the garbage, but it's recurring. To me, I would want to put out the garbage the night before. But if we get talking and he says, "I got it," it's not out the night before, to let it go. And if it's not done early enough the next day, it doesn't get picked up. That's a natural consequence. And I have to let that happen because that respects his decision to say, "I'm going to do it." Worst case scenario, we have a little more garbage next week. Like, and it might sit outside the can. And so for me, sometimes I have to go to the end and go, what's worst case scenario if that doesn't happen? And it's
mhm.
more important to me to preserve that relationship than to be right.
And here's the at the foundation of this, one of the biggest complaints I hear from wives is, "I want him to do more without me asking."
Oh,
Okay. I want him to step up. I want him to, lead in these ways. I want him to take care of these things. I don't want to be the one doing all the things. And amen to that. Okay. I will tell you what will not encourage that to happen is you critiquing him in the process. It all it does, I've experienced it. I think we've all experienced that when we do come in and whatever, critique, correct. tell them whatever, or we see the garbage wasn't brought out, they missed it, they forgot it. What will not work is us making them feel bad about it. We've all done it, and it doesn't do anything helpful. And so what it does is it makes them feel this big, so small, so small. And it makes them feel like they're not capable to do that. And they're not capable to, even if they are able to do it well, or to a standard that we feel okay about. So why would they want to do it anyway if it's not good enough? And so if you truly want your husband to step up, ask yourself, how am I even encouraging that? Am I? So that's just and I just invite that, it's painful, but invite that and ask the Lord to convict you about potentially some ways that that's happening. And it happens to all of us, even Kelly and I, when we've even had a revelation, and it's like, oh, that was gross. That did not feel good. Or that I just did that to you. Forgive me. Gross. I don't like that I don't want to be that. I don't want to make you feel that way, So ask for forgiveness if you have. That's super healing as well. If you're convicted right now, go to your husband tonight, or right now if you're with him, and or call him and say, like, I have been XYZ. I don't want to be that. I don't want, I please forgive me, and just own that part in it. And then grow in that again, start to strengthen that muscle.
That's so mature, being able to say, hey, I did that wrong. We don't often see that in today's world. We don't.
No.
And so to own it and to say, hey, my bad, I failed. Please forgive me. That sets up a really healthy pattern of openness and giving and receiving. We see that with Jesus. Throughout the day, there's times when I'm distanced from him because of my own pride, my own sin, and I want to do it my way. But when I say, God, I'm so sorry, like I'm trying to make that happen, and that's all you, I just pray that you open doors, then we're back in right relationship. It's almost like walking, sometimes after dinner, Mark and I go on a walk, and we have the park nearby. And when we are walking, we're in sync. Stride for stride, step for step. And that feels like, oh, great, like this is us, right? But we have those moments where it gets a little off, and we kind of stutter step, or we find ourselves trying to sync to find that again. And I think we experience that here with asking for help, where we are out of sync, but to do it in a way that starts with forgiveness, and it starts with our need, and expressing that helps us to literally get back into sync. I think sometimes I have to, in order to change my behavior, give myself a little goal. And so to try to say, I'm going to encourage him 3 times today. I'm going to say words like, if he says, hey, I'm going to take care of the garbage, I go, hey, thanks for taking care of us. Because it's really what it comes down to. I know it's garbage, but, or you'll be great. I'm sure whatever you decide will be the best for us. And to say those words, like those are like little droplets, and just one drop of water at a time. But over time, that creates a flood of this guy, like filled with confidence, and his shoulders back, and he leads in a strong way because he knows that I trust him in the little things and in the big things. So to intentionally say, I'm sure whatever you decide will be great for us.
Mm-hmm. And that makes me think that oftentimes I think this topic can feel so overwhelming because we don't know where to start. Or when we do go to our husbands with this statement that I think I need some help, or I would like things to look different, or whatever, it feels so like we're dumping something onto the marriage or the home or our husbands that it maybe in the past hasn't gone well. And so because too, we're like, we need help. And they're like, well, with what? And we're like, everything, or I don't know. I just need a lot of help, like it's almost like we haven't been able to have healthy dialogue about this in the past. So if that's you, I just encourage you to, again, re-listen to this episode, maybe send it over to your husband. And that challenge then, like Kelly just said, is a small step. So maybe it's that you list out those tasks. explain to him maybe what that mental load and emotional labor feels like, and maybe start with one task that he would like to take off your plate maybe, and then let him own that. And maybe it's one small thing that you can really encourage him in, and he can be like, oh my gosh, she loves that I do that, and she's so encouraging about it, like it went really well. And then maybe it can be, let's reevaluate in a month and come back to this list maybe, or something. So that is your challenge today, is to repent, go to your husband, and after asking the Lord maybe how this has not, maybe how you haven't
Right.
honored the Lord in this in the past,
Right.
ask your husband for forgiveness in that, and then have a conversation about this, what we're talking about with him, and just again be in sync with him as you do that. Don't push him over on the sidewalk to make him feel like a piece of scum. Really like invite him into what it feels like being you, and into this process of like navigating through this, so that you both can come together and feel more balance and in harmony on the topic. So
Right. I love that. Starting with the Lord and asking Him for insight and then going to each other. I think even knowing sometimes guys are solution based, right? They tend to
yes.
be largely. So even just saying, I feel really overwhelmed by the amount of things on my calendar right now and the things I'm trying to do. Can I share those with you? Can you help me divide those out? What am I not seeing? Some of those may, in fact, get moved off of the plate, and
Yes.
some he may say, "Hey, I could help with that." And then that's his idea that he says, "Hey," I mean, you might think that he's going to pick this item number 2, but he's like, "Oh, 4 and 5," and you end up learning more about each other and go, "Okay, that was his idea because I left it open and said, here are some things that I'm overwhelmed with. So leave it open that he can choose."
Mm. So years ago when we redid this in our marriage, one of the things my husband said, I would like to take that off of the list. Like I want to own that, was our finances.
Okay.
And I kid you not, like when he said that, I was like, oh no. I was like, you can't. There are so many reasons you shouldn't. Like, in my head, because it makes me feel, it really was my own thing. I feel safer when I manage them. I think I do a better job at that. I feel like if I know what's going on, then I can manage our everything better, right? Like that's what was going on in my head. And it was fear based. And I sensed, I discerned my response in me, and I was like even taken back by my response to him wanting to take that off the list. And so that might be an interesting experience for you too, where you're like, I don't want to give that over to you, and that lean into that. Um,
Mm,
Ended up giving that over to my husband, and it's been the best thing for my mental health, honestly. But
mm.
just, you might experience that too, where you're like, but I don't want to give that to you. You might not do that well, and like, oof, ugh, like, Lord, help my heart. But so, so good. So, Kristen Milner, again, thank you for these words, kristenmilner.com. And again, this blog post is linked in this episode, and it's over on awifelikeme.com. So, yay. Ladies, every episode we talk about something special, and I have no idea what we're going to talk about. So, Kelly, what is something special for this episode?
Well, it's cold outside, and I'm thinking, what is your best stay in date? What do you like to do if you carve out some time with your husband at home and you're like, hey, we're going to have some time together? What do you do?
That's funny because, like, we live in Minnesota, so like no, not 90. I'm over exaggerating. I'm being dramatic. It's like
85.
October through April, you're inside. So, our like, if we're gonna stay home, we tend to um have something fun to drink that's special to us, just different than normal, and then we will watch a fun movie together. That's just like, we love doing that, and we love bonding over like things that we want get excited about. So that's typically what we'll do if we'll stay home. We tend to not grab games, but we do love that when we do that, like cards. Like cards. We're very competitive, so it doesn't always end well. You know what I mean? You want the night to end well, so it's not in our best interest. What about you guys?
Sometimes we'll start with like an appetizer before dinner, like I'll set it out that's different. like sushi that I've
Ooh.
gotten from someplace, or like Aldi has this great charcuterie board right now, which is, for us Midwesterners, that means meat and cheese, right? Show off a little bit, put some fruit on there, maybe some jam. Okay, a couple chocolates on the side. So I'll have out a little like appetizer, and he's like, "Oh, well, that's special," right? To kind of set the mood. And then we have dinner. And then afterwards, if we are like staying inside, we'll do a puzzle together. That really helps us connect. We do kind of have to put a time limit, because otherwise Mark will stay up until it's like done, right? So I would say, sometimes we say, okay, so how much is too much time? Because staying up until midnight seems, on a weeknight, seems a little much. But we'll have like maybe a charcuterie board there too, like just some little snacks and things where I maybe set it out on a special tray or something that we don't use all the time, but it just kind of signifies, hey, this is something different.
So are the kids in bed at this point?
Yeah.
Okay. See, that's what we do like too, is like I'll make us we'll eat, or I'll feed the kids, and then I will like make something special for us, and then we will like, I'll light a candle and we'll just eat together alone and talk intentionally, like I like that too. That's fun. But I like the fanciness of the charcuterie board, and
right. You can upgrade your sausage and cheese. Start calling it charcuterie board.
So fun. Fancy. Hey, ladies, if you want encouragement, more support, head over to awifelikeme.com. Also, if you are not in the A Wife Like Me collective, we encourage you to do that. That's where we dive deeper into really holding each other accountable in our faith and in our marriages. So if you're not over there, just head to collective.awifelikeme.com and we will see you there. Kelly Brinkman, thank you so much for sharing with us and being with us. We love you.
Same. Thanks again, Kristen.
Yes, Kristen, we love you as well. We love you all listening, watching. Hey, thanks for being here. And we will see you back with an all-new episode of the A Wife Like Me podcast next week. Bye, everyone.